Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California, this is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael, and today we're thrilled to have back on the show our friend Holly Lindblom, and she runs Holly's Haunts. She's been on the show many times. She's a paranormal investigator who's gone to hundreds of locations, haunted locations around the country. But today we're going to be focused on more local haunts, including Carole King's house and Dan Aykroyd's house. So I'm pretty excited because I don't know a whole lot about those houses. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our show. I'm really glad you guys can tune in or watch it on the recording after if you can't join us live. We've got all kinds of great stuff coming up. Next week is going to be, of course, Spell It Out to start the month, where Krista will do a free-for-all on whatever she will talk about. And we're lining up some really great guests for March. And one in particular, we have an author who's a renowned expert on UFOs for the end of the month. So you guys definitely want to check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun getting to know him. And we're going to do some more shows, I think, on witchcraft and some other cool stuff, too. So get all the information on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out. And while you're there, buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi if you can afford to. It sure helps us cover some of our production costs. But this is definitely a labor of love. We're doing it for you guys. And then, the best thing you can do is go to YouTube and click like and subscribe. And if you, by the way, if you guys are out and about, if you don't want to watch the video, you can find us as a podcast. Just go to Spotify or Google or wherever you get your podcast and search Sixth Sense Society. We should pop right up. So if you're on the drive home, you can always listen to us as well. So I'm not going to take up any more time. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to you. So take it away, Krista.
Great. Thank you, Michael, and welcome.
I'm so glad to be back. It's so exciting.
It's so much fun to have you.
Thank you.
You've been with us for a while.
Years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see what you're up to. And I know you've been able to go to more places now since things have been lifted and since last year even.
I have. I truly have. And I'm getting out more. I'm able to find more local. I'm being a tourist in my own backyard, which is fun.
Well, it does seem like this area is full of places to go. That's my impression.
Yeah.
You can almost make that your main focus.
I've been lately and just I'm focused on the canyons right now. That's what I've been doing, is taking my trips around and finding all the haunted places and trying not to trespass too much. And being respectful with everything I do.
Right. So, I did notice that some of the ones that you've been looking at recently are very much connected to artists. Do you have a particular connection to artists that you like to follow?
It's the 60s. I think it's the hippie movement. I think it's, the summer of love, all of that era. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of, the 27 Club, all of that stuff plays into. Mm-hmm. So that's why now I'm going up into the canyons where all that history, rock and roll history, is at.
And you definitely like rock and roll,
of
I
course.
Can tell. You're a big music lover. So, let's get started. Let's start with one of my favorites is Carole King's house. I did want to mention that I absolutely adored that album Tapestry when I was younger.
And that's where she took the picture with her cat Telemachus, and we were talking about that. Her cat Telemachus, isn't that a cool name? She actually did music and then tapestry there in the house. She reported that there was a bad divorce that had happened in the house. That's maybe where some of the spirits or whatever came from, but it was Courtney Cox that actually has come out into the public, and she does talk about it constantly, saying how it's haunted, and that's what ran her out of the house.
So did Courtney own it after Carole King?
Yes. And they actually did a seance there, and Courtney Cox is saying how she was so just, mesmerized by Carole King. She didn't even pay attention to the seance, but she did say that a UPS driver came up and that the driver was like, "Do you know your house is haunted?" And she's like, "What?" And there's somebody standing behind you. and she talks about it. She's been on Howard Stern. She's been on all kinds of shows talking about this. So she's real vocal about it, which, I mean, if they both say it's haunted, it must be haunted.
And did she live there very long, or did Carole King live there very long?
Carole King lived there for a long time. Courtney Cox, not so much, yeah. But she hightailed it out of there after all of those occurrences happened. So, yeah, she put it up for sale. And you know, when I went by there, there was a lady out there watering, and she didn't seem bothered. And I didn't want to bug her, and I didn't want to say anything or disturb any of the residents of these homes. You know, I don't know who she was. I just did my little video and got out of there. But it's really trippy. It's got a witch's hat on the front of it. That's, you know.
Oh, the house itself looks like
the house itself has a witch's hat, which is so cool. I love those houses.
Maybe that's a portal then.
Maybe.
Because, well, it seems like a bad divorce. Why would that necessarily create a haunting? I'm not saying it wouldn't have a bad vibe, but...
That's what Carole King had said, that there was a really bad divorce. Well, you know, I've been through a bad divorce, so yeah, it could cause a really bad vibe. So that happens. But I don't know about a haunting. I don't know if you know, I don't know who died in the house or what's going on, but there's definitely a male spirit there. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it bothered Carole King too much.
No. She probably sang to it with Telemachus by her side. and you would think Courtney Cox wouldn't be so freaked out being in all these movies in the Scream franchise, but obviously she is a scaredy cat. And she doesn't like it, you know, even though she's typecast as that, you know, out of respect to her, you know. I don't blame her. If you're living with that kind of things going on, it would freak me out too.
Yeah, I think she was living by herself at the time too, so that would be a little more frightening.
Of course,
I'm a total scaredy cat when I'm by myself.
Me too.
I mean, I'm the kind of person I'll scream.
Yeah. Oh, I'll run out of somewhere, but then I'll go back in. But then I'll be like, okay, let's go.
When I'm with others, it's not so bad, but by myself, like people that like stay at night by themselves in one room in some of those, you know, shows, ghost hunting shows, I would never be able to do that. I'd never sleep.
Yeah, I mean, have you been alone here?
No, I will not be alone in this lodge either. I will say I've been downstairs for maybe 45 minutes in the daytime, but even then I made sure all the exits were easy to get to. And I will not be here by myself like Michael at times, because even though it's a friendly haunting,
it's still haunted.
It's still haunted.
It's still haunted.
Yeah. So I'm just, you know, maybe I need to get more comfortable with it, but I haven't quite gotten over that jumpiness.
I mean, I've been doing this for all my life, and I've never gotten over it, and I'm still scared, and I still go into places and I feel like, woo, and there's been places where I don't want to go into.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm not, like I've said, I'm not clairvoyant, any of these things, but you do get feelings.
Well, then you could be a sensitive.
Maybe.
You know, I think that the psychic side of ghost investigating, if people do it long enough, I think it just becomes part of what they do, but they don't call it that, because it's like, it's just, it opens up on its own.
It has, definitely.
And so whatever you want to call it, there's so many different kinds of abilities. Like some people, like, they're sensitive. They call them sensitives. And some people are like sponges, and they'll just absorb. So that they call them the clairs. I think that's so funny. Clairvoyant, clairsentient. That's not the only way to be open to the other world.
Right.
You know, so, and I think the more you do anything, you get better at it. You get more experience. You start trusting things. You said, oh, that happened to me before. And, you know.
I feel sadness a lot. You know, I do. I feel that's an overwhelming emotion that I'll get sometimes. Like, God, this is a bummed out feeling, you know, and because of the circumstances, well, what have happened with the hauntings. So yeah, at Carole King's house, I didn't feel like that at all. I was like excited to be up there, and I've watched so many other people do their shows and their little, you know, their videos on it, that it was exciting for me to find it. And the big thing with me is like coming up to the houses and then finally seeing them, and they're so much bigger than you imagine. I mean, it's different seeing them on your TV, and you're actually there. You're like, wow, this place is huge. This is truly a mansion. You know?
Sure. Yeah, I would have loved to be in that seance. That would have been fun.
Right?
Do you know who owns it now?
No, I just seen the lady out there, but I have no clue who she sold it to, and
See, now if I had been there, I probably would have gone up to that lady. I have no qualms about that part.
I didn't want to because I had my friend in the car who kind of suffering from early onset of dementia, and I was taking him out, and so that's why I was like, let me just go and then get back to him, and it was taking him on a little tour of the canyons with me, so that was cool.
Oh, that was nice. Yeah. So now is the other one that you mentioned before the show, Dan Aykroyd's, is that near there?
Yes, it's not too far from there. That's Woodrow Wilson Drive, and that's like on a little, it's almost like on a hidden cul-de-sac. And,
oh, we have a question.
Yes. Hello, can I ask you advice on my ghost encounter? That's okay.
His English is not as first. Yeah, go ahead and ask. We'll keep talking while you're putting your thoughts together.
Yeah. So Dan Aykroyd bought the home, which was originally Mama Cass Elliott, which I've been doing a lot of research, and I found out that she did not like being called Mama Cass.
Really?
Yeah. And I've heard this a lot now, so we're just gonna call her Cass, because if she didn't like it, no disrespect, and her home being the mecca of 60s rock haven. I also read that, that she didn't have like a crash pad. This was a house that people had to be invited to, or she would have barbecues on the weekends. This was someplace that you had to call before showing up. It was, her true home. And you had everybody from, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell hanging out in the front yard, the Monkees. I mean, everybody was just hanging out there with her, making music. And, she died at 32, very young. Horrible rumors about her death, but in the end, she died in her sleep like a heart attack.
Oh, I'd always heard she'd choked to death. That was one of the rumors?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
of her
horrible.
Weight.
Yes, and she didn't, and it's okay. She died in her sleep. What a way to go, And so what it ended up happening was Dan Aykroyd bought the house, and right away things kind of started happening. And he is really vocal. He's gone on like Joe Rogan, all these shows, and has talked about how a bigger ghost crawled into bed with him, and he kind of snuggled up to it and went to bed and didn't really think anything of it, but he wants to think it's Cass. That was his inspiration for Ghostbusters, that house and the things that went on there, which I find so cool because I'm a kid of the 80s and I loved that movie. And that whole library ghost, she was so scary to me when I was a kid.
I want to rewatch that. I loved that movie. I adored it. But it's been since it came out. I haven't watched it again.
Oh, you got it. We went and we stayed at the Biltmore Hotel just because it was filmed there.
Oh.
So I took my daughter and we that has a whole Black Dahlia thing and everything, the Biltmore. But that was filmed. The Ghostbusters there. So Dan Aykroyd ended up putting it on the market. No one would rent it. No one would buy it. Okay. And he had to disclose, that there was some paranormal stuff going on there. And, Beverly D'Angelo, she was married to Al Pacino. She's in the Vacation movies. She is, right? I mean, she started in Hair and, she's, into music too. She said, and I just watched this, that she was looking at houses and that she was drawn to this house. She had no idea, she calls up somebody and they said, that's Dan and Diane's house. She's, oh, I know them. I'm going to call them. Right. And she does. And she offers way less because at the time, and she's on a Ghost Hunters episode talking about this. I'm almost like mimicking exactly what she's saying, but she's a single mom. She offers less money and she was drawn to it. Well, things started happening. And the first night that she spent the night in the house, she was there alone, turned on a fire and thought, the only thing that would make this better is some music. She heard the CD player click and she went over to it, just kind of brushed it off, put it on. It was like some bluesy music. She had a couple friends freak out in the bathroom. Couple weeks later, like really freaking out, where she had to calm people down and be like, no, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. And, she talks to them. And then She said that there was a time that there was things on her mantle that she was laying down, just started moving right in front of her.
Okay, that's always freaky. Things moving by themselves.
And it really was moving. And she can contest, and she talks about it, that they were actually moving around. So that's haunted, you know. And I mean, Dan Aykroyd talks about, she talks about, the only person that doesn't want to talk about or doesn't talk is Renee Zellweger. Nothing. She is mum's the word on that house.
Interesting.
But I drove up to it and parked in Beverly D'Angelo. Sorry. Sorry. I was really sorry. But it was so cool, like, to actually, that the gates were open, and I did my little video, and I'm like, let's get out of here. And
That is really cool.
I didn't want no one to come out, or, you know, I mean, I would tell her, I'm sorry, I'm just, you know, I'm interested in your stories, but yeah, that was cool. That's a creepy house.
Huh. All right, so we have a question here from Filippo in France. I leave the nightclub very drunk. I fall asleep in a park and wake up covered in ectoplasm. I see 4 large ghosts run away. Why do they ectoplasm me? Is this strange? So assuming that ectoplasm is kind of a goo, right?
I guess that's like Slimer from Ghostbusters. Let's tie it in. So it's like Slimer. No, I don't know. I don't really know of anybody that has actually, or I've never really read a whole lot about that. The only thing that I've read or seen or anything about ectoplasm or anything like that is like the Amityville Horror, when it was oozing down the walls.
I did read something in the Feminine Macabre, but I can't remember, about this woman who goes inside this closed in container, and I believe there's some ectoplasm or something. She's like a very old school psychic.
Oh.
She's alive too, but I can't remember the details. But he wants to know why they would choose him. Well, what do you think that could be that they were attracted to him?
Maybe he was messing with some stuff, or it could be even ancestors. I think ancestors come back. I think that people that you love and that you know, they let you know that they're still here with you sometimes.
If I can jump in too, one of the things, of course, that the Native Americans believed is, especially if he was drinking, is that alcohol tends to open you up to a lot of spiritual, demonic stuff, everything else, that it's really kind of not a good thing in some ways.
Yeah, my dad talks about that with spirit attachments, is they can definitely come in really easily when you drink.
Really?
And if he was very drunk, plus he's sort of out in a park, let's say maybe he's sensitive to spirits without knowing it, it would be kind of a, all those factors.
I would definitely talk out loud to what he thinks if they're following him. If it just happened, an isolated incident, it's just that time. You were in the wrong place, the wrong time. If you were scared, I'm sorry that happened to you, but I think that you should talk to them and tell them, if it scares you, leave me alone. This is my body. This, you know what I mean? Like, don't scare me type of thing. But I think that's, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
That's a wild story.
That's a wild story.
And he said he looked like he was covered in pearls. That is crazy.
That's scary to wake up and, where am I,
Well, at least he was not hurt.
Yeah. And it was just that. So, I would talk to them.
That's good advice.
Yeah, just talk to them. And everybody should do that if they feel a malevolent spirit in your house or something like that,
What would you go to the ghost investigation book? Nonfiction, like a Ghost Hunter's Bible? Ooh, there's so many.
There's so many. I liked Haunted Hollywood by Laurie Jacobson. I like that book. I got it signed by her. She's cool. The Ghosts of Hollywood. I've been told, by Craig Owens, that the Encyclopedia of Haunted Places isn't good and that a lot of this stuff is not true. Mm-hmm. So I've been schooled on that. You're very welcome. I hope all is well in France. Thank you for tuning in. I just think that that book and the stuff that I've researched too, it's false. So I think that a lot of these ghost hunters or paranormal people, they make a lot of stuff up, which isn't cool for people like myself and Craig and other people, that we're actually doing this for real. Mm-hmm. We're not making things up. We're going by the facts. We're figuring it out. What is real? What is not? Let's figure it out. The truth. Mm-hmm. You know?
He could always read Craig's book, even though it's not really related to his question, but it's a great book.
Yes, Haunted by History by Craig Owens. We just plugged your book, Craig.
I think too, guys, that some of the old tried and true stuff is what I understand starting out. You know, the K2 meters or the EMF meters are great. Recorders, so you're looking for EVPs. Of course, Jeff Mandel, our friend's been on the show often. He's an expert on EVPs and enhancing them and so forth. But a lot of it is just the basic stuff. And I think a lot of the stuff I've read, especially if you're just getting into the idea of paranormal investigation, is just some of the old tried and true stuff to start with that.
Yeah, even your phone.
The other thing, this is kind of a very old publication, but Fate magazine has been around for over 50 years, reporting on everything from paranormal to the aliens. And what's nice about it, it has a lot of stories with regular people writing in their paranormal stories.
That's
and
cool.
it's, you can order the back issues. And so I got, for the first time I had a subscription for last year, and I really enjoyed it because it had such a mix, and it will have strange stories of people that have been haunted, but it's also got a lot of alien stuff. But they were publishing this well before a lot of this stuff, like Ancient Aliens and all the ghost TV shows. It's like got a long history, and he could like go there and look through the back issues and see if there's something that maybe speaks to him about his particular situation.
You got to share this story with Holly, because she hasn't been here in the lodge in a little bit, and the lodge where we do our broadcast from is definitely haunted. I think we've pretty much verified that. But we had a group here not so long ago, and actually Jeff Mandel was here with them, and Master Chaos and a few of his friends ghost hunting. And we're in the lodge room, and I was using one of the EMF meters. And as I'm walking around the room, you would get spikes, but never in the same place, which is really bizarre, because it's, if it's an electrical thing or a conduit or something, it's always going to be stationary. And this, it would be like in one place, and then it would be in another part of the room, and then another part of the room, like it was moving around, which was super cool. And every once in a while, you would just kind of run into it as you were walking around as well in different parts of the room. So then after everybody came out and they were in the hallway, and there had been nobody in the lodge room for a while, and I thought, I'm going to go back in and walk the room again just by myself and see. Nothing. I couldn't run into anything. It was just completely dead. And so I brought the meter with me, and I came out in the hallway where everybody was, and suddenly I started hitting peaks there in the hallway. So whatever it was had actually followed us out into the hallway, and where there had been nothing there before, all of a sudden it's like little peaks in the meter, and exactly where they were sitting. So it was one of the coolest things. But the whole idea that, again, it wasn't stationary. It was just in different parts of the room, like it was moving around. It tripped me right out for sure.
Yeah.
So to quickly answer your question about Craig's book, I believe it's on Amazon. You can also follow him on Instagram, Bizarre Los Angeles.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure it is on Amazon. If not, just let us know, and I'll shoot you a link to it.
Yes.
But let's talk a little bit more about Dan Aykroyd's house. What I thought was cool was he seems to have used it as an inspiration. It doesn't sound like he was necessarily frightened by it, but I don't know.
No, I don't think that he was frightened by it. I think that it was definitely life-changing, that he did write scripts on it, and he did, feel this, and it made him a believer because he lived through it. So that's really cool in itself, that,
I guess that's why Ghostbusters was so good.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was based on something.
Yeah, and then
or inspired
there's
by real
scene,
events
and,
in a sense.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you for joining us. And you can get it, off of Amazon. And that's Scary with the Big Black Demon. Dan Aykroyd, the fact that he talks about it so much and has gone on to still talk about it, so I think it made a big effect on his life.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it even has somebody getting into bed with him.
That's right. I forgot. I've got to go rewatch that.
You got to
movie.
rewatch it.
I might even do it tonight. So what other places in that area have you gone to?
Okay, so coming out from there, then we're going to go down by where the Houdini Mansion is at, and that's Lookout Mountain Road and Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And there has been so many reports on this horse and buggy coming out, causing car accidents. Cops have seen this. People have seen this.
Wow.
And it's a phenomenon, and it's in all my books. So I've gone down there quite a few times. I mean, I broke into the Houdini mansion, years ago before there was a fence on it. And that's like right where Lookout Mountain Road comes down and the Houdini mansion's right here. And you could be able to get onto the grounds before. That's when it was in ruins. So, and then right around the corner is like one of my favorites that I have been researching off the hook is Rick Rubin's mansion. And that's where Red Hot Chili Peppers have filmed Blood Sugar Sex Magic, LCD Sound System, Slipknot's Corey Taylor, the singer. He has talked about it so much that he's going to write a book about it.
Wow.
Somebody, one of the guitar players from Slipknot, I don't want to mess up his name, but he said around 4 o'clock every morning that his amp would act funny. John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is the only one that thinks they're like cool, and he likes them. That's cool, John. I just think that's so awesome. And then I found an old MTV interview where they went in there and they were talking about how haunted the house was. And on the album Blood Sugar Sex Magic, if you look this up, there is an actual picture of an orb that they left in there.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's an actual picture of at the house. And if anybody knows Rick Rubin, please, Rick, can I just photograph your house just from the outside? I just want to photograph just the outside of it because I'm so into all these stories. And Jay-Z's 99 Problems was done there. So many artists.
Well, it seems like we've talked about this on other shows about the connection to music and spirits.
Yeah.
And how you can use it to attract a spirit playing. We've got a lot of shows we talked about. So it makes sense that some of these homes were the homes of people that were musicians.
Yeah, well, this was Errol Flynn's home to begin with, the mansion. And the murder that took place there was this man, 1918, I guess flung his wife off the balcony.
Ooh.
You know, I'd have to do a little bit more research, but everything I've read online and I've looked up and everything is that's what it's caused from. And then Flea talks about it, how they brought some psychics into the house and they said there was a lady ghost there. And on the MTV interview, you guys could look this up, John Frusciante, he's like pointing up and he's like, everybody's scared of there. And they did a documentary called Funky Monks and they filmed it all in the mansion.
Funky Monks.
Funky Monks.
Were they really monks?
It's just the Red Hot Chili Peppers being. That's the name of their documentary, Funky Monks.
Funky Monks.
But that's all shot in black and white. And they were making Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is one of their biggest albums ever. That's where Under the Bridge is from. So I'm fascinated by that. And I've seen that Funky Monks I don't know how many times. And I recently, when I went and I was going around Laurel Canyon, I tried to park to go by to look at the Rick Rubin's, but it's so dangerous crossing Laurel Canyon Boulevard, so I didn't do it. But what's weird was I found a chair on the street and I put it in the car. And it's like a wooden chair and it's like a swivel chair. And you guys, it's from the 60s. I mean, it's just so old and it looks like it's like trees, like wood. So I have that in my work.
That is such a nice gift.
Like, thank you, Laurel Canyon.
Yeah, maybe the spirits like you.
They gave me a chair.
And especially since it reminded you of the 60s.
It did. It was like this is, and then it's like has all these things that it was imported to California. So that was neat. Yeah. And but Laurel Canyon definitely has a lot of energy. A lot of hippies would just go walking through there. The music would be playing. David Crosby just had passed away, and I was reading and seeing that everybody up there was playing their music after he passed, because that's where they made all that music at. So long live rock and roll, huh?
I wonder if it's a lot different, the energy, than when it was in the 60s. Like, because a lot of people now that live there, they're not necessarily part of that creative movement.
I think the Charles Manson thing killed it. I think the Summer of Love was over when those hippies went up there and killed Sharon Tate and all of her friends.
Yeah.
And, where Dan Aykroyd's house is at, the Cass Elliot house, right in back of that was Wojtek Frykowski's and Abigail Filger's house before they moved into Cielo Drive. So Cass knew everybody there except for Stephen Parent that died that night. She was friends with everybody.
Wow.
And that made everybody, Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas talks about it, how that made everybody in the 60s be paranoid. People were sleeping with guns underneath their pillows. It made people just change. So that whole element.
What's really weird, but just again, since I like synchronicities, I'm reading, my father is an expert on JFK and the assassination. And he wrote, his recent book he wrote is on just the day, November 22nd through the 24th. And what, sort of a play-by-play of all of what happened to Kennedy. But that era of being frightened by something horrific, it was also the decade of assassinations.
There you go.
And it seems like, in a weird way, it's kind of tied together, particularly because with JFK, there was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And it's never been fully solved. So it all seems to have, like, to me, this ripple effect, because at one point, there was this great promise that was really, the lid was put on. And I think it changed America.
It did.
Like, I'm not all for the hippies of themselves, some of the stuff they did. They weren't great to women, for one thing.
Right.
But at the same time, there was something creative and hopeful about people,
Free love.
People like speaking up. And I wonder if we've ever really kind of recovered from that as a country.
I don't think so. I think we've gone backwards in a lot of ways because our rights are being taken from us as women also too. And that was, burn your bra, get out there, protest. Women had a say so more. Now it's like quiet over there, and then, the 60s was one of those times that you could, get out there on your soapbox and preach and say what you feel. You know?
Yeah, especially saying what you feel, like
saying
just
what you feel
heartfelt.
And it being valid. And I tell everybody that I my kids and everything, your feelings are valid,
Yeah.
and you should be able to have a great day. Thank you so much.
We're talking to the people that are visiting us through chat, which we're really happy to have on the show. Thank you all for chatting with each other and for your questions so far. And we'll check in with you in a couple more minutes. So let's move on to the one that you also mentioned before the show, the Canned Heat House. I'd never heard that story. And tell us about what that was like and what is the Canned Heat House haunting.
So the Canned Heat House was, the members of Canned Heat, Bob Hite, the Bear, and Alan Blind Al Wilson. They came together for this blues music, which they were at Woodstock. They were very, prominent in the late 60s. And what ended up happening was the first house that was built there got demolished by, like, the stream. Because there's, like, the water comes through, it flew down. There's actually pictures online that show the demolish of it, And then what ended up happening was Alan Blind Owl Wilson, he was born on 4th of July. He died September 3rd, 1970. He died 1 year after Brian Jones. He died, and then a couple weeks later, Jimi Hendrix died, then Janis died, and then Jim Morrison died.
Wow.
They were all 27. These are the founding members of the 27 Club, right? Mm-hmm. But Blind Owl is somebody that they don't talk about as much because he was an introvert. They say he was depressed. A lot of things say, his friends don't say it, but a lot of people say, he was just on the scale of autism because he was so smart, but he was so introverted, and people swear that's not the truth, but he was depressed. He didn't talk about suicide, but he went to sleep up there the night. He did this a lot. He was a botanist. He went to school for this. He loved nature. And what other place to be in nature than Topanga Canyon? How beautiful it is up there. So he took his sleeping bag, and this was the night before they were supposed to go on a trip to Germany on tour. Didn't show up, which wasn't not like him because he didn't like to fly. He didn't like to travel, and he hated touring. Mm-hmm. And they found him in a sleeping bag up there. And cause of death was ruled barbiturate overdose. He still had 4 pills in his pocket. No suicide note. And people say that he's there. And I went up there, and there used to be like a bridge that went over it that you could actually like walk across. That's all gone. They took that all down. You have to hike down to it now. And it is kind of dangerous. I'm not going to lie. Like, the structure is completely trashed. and it's all graffitied up and everything, but that's the Canned Heat House. And that band is just kind of like, has a lot of, that guy, Bob Haidt, he was given heroin by a fan and went into a coma. And his friends tried to give him cocaine, and that killed him. They took him to another house, and he died. I don't know what they thought. Oh, let's give him an up or downer, and then, and he passed away.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that band's full of tragedy. And, but Blind Owl Wilson, he died underneath the stars up there behind the Canned Heat House. And it's still there.
Wow. Now, do you know how he got that name, Blind Owl?
So he was technically blind, and what I've read, that when he forgot his glasses one time, they were at a wedding, and he put his guitar in a wedding cake. How embarrassing. Poor guy. How embarrassing that he could not see so bad that he couldn't even recognize his own band members.
Wow.
So they called him Blind Owl. And he had like the little chubby faces,
right.
So that's what they called him, and that's where he got that from. But he was technically blind, and he didn't drive. And they said that he was in a car accident because he couldn't drive, and yeah, poor guy.
And well, owl is associated with wisdom and magic.
And he was all of that, and botanist and all
right.
these things. So yeah, he was a little sorcerer of the canyon over there, in his own, way. But yeah, he passed away over there. And 27 Club, one of the founding members.
Now, did you pick up anything when you were there?
I was just more about not falling into anything and being careful.
Being physically safe.
I was physically trying to be careful because it's so ruined. And I did not go into the structure. Like, I just took pictures on this because it just looks like it could fall down. And I wasn't going to go. And that's one thing. I don't anymore. My younger self would have trudged right through it. I'm not trying to get a tetanus shot. I'm not trying to go to the emergency room.
Right.
Going into these places, it's like get the shots, get the footage, and then, kind of go respectfully. So that's where we're
That's
at.
a good reminder of being physically safe when you're hunting, going ghost hunting, especially like if you go at night somewhere and you can't see the little pitfalls. And that's...
I don't go at night anymore, really. And that's because of my own safety. That's because I don't want to run into any humans that are up to something.
Yeah.
I would never go to the Canned Heat House alone at night. I've had a couple people say, don't go there alone. I'm not going to go alone, but even, you never know. The world's changed, and I don't want to get robbed or going into these places in the canyons. It's dangerous.
Well, I think any desolate place technically could be dangerous around, except certain parts of the world maybe. But even then, that could have changed by now. But because that's where people go that also want to do something mischievous, as you said,
Yeah, and it is kind of mischievous, crawling down a canyon in my fur coat, going across the little river, it's fun. It's like a rush. It's like, don't get caught. But I mean, there was other people up there, and there was people like gathering mushrooms and stuff. There was ladies there by themselves. A son and his father were there, and I told them whose house it was. They didn't even know, and I was like, you're at the Canned Heat House, so it's cool. And they did all those really cool songs. So I listened to them recently, just a channel before I came on the podcast, and he was so talented. And he was like coming out with James Lee Hooker, he was teaming up with them, Hooker and he, and all these things. So it was like all these blues artists were coming together, and then he passed away, and then Bob Haidt passed away.
Yeah, that's so sad.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah. Oh, that's the danger of them, I'm afraid. I mean, you're taking a risk.
Yeah.
And now even knowing that, people will still do it. And I guess I understand, a lot of times when people become addicted to drugs is because they have a deep pain.
Yeah.
Though sometimes it's experimentation, Yeah,
and it could lead to more, down the road. But a lot of these musicians, they're surrounded by yes people. Nobody's telling them like, hey man, you should do this and that. You should it's like, no, take more. Let's have fun. This life's a party, and life ends for them.
Well, the other thing has to do with the romance of the artist. And if you read, we all get attracted, I think, including me, to people that died or suffered in whatever genre that we're interested in. But there's also other people that had even happy lives.
Yeah.
I mean, you think that, though it is true, there are some incredibly talented people that suffered and died young in different centuries. So there is something to sometimes the artistic personality that makes them super sensitive to life.
Yeah.
And we, as a culture, I think maybe there's certain periods that have supported artists better. Like, I would say this is not a good period for the true artist, the person that does something because they love the art, at least in the Western world, because there's so much commercial music, commercial writing.
Yes.
And there's so much pressure to do that. And of course, now we also have the visual that you have to look a certain way to be an artist, which you don't.
No, you don't.
You could look
like
like
Pink Floyd.
You don't even, to be honest, you don't even have to look cool. Being cool is being yourself. So to me, that's what's cool.
That's what's cool.
Whatever style is you.
Right.
We sense that, like, well, that person's in touch with themselves, you know, that's why they can wear that bow tie, you know, whatever it is that makes them them.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's one reason why, you know, the real artist personality, not the posers and people that want the lifestyle, and they care about their art.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean all artists are good people. This is something I've had to come to terms with when you find out someone that you really care about was incredibly talented, but not a nice person.
Yeah.
But you can't ignore necessarily that they were a great artist.
Yeah, their
music. Yeah, whatever it is that they contributed to the society.
That's right.
So, but there's you know, but then on the other hand, there's this, we romance that idea that you have to be great, you have to do that, and that's not true.
No.
You don't have to do drugs.
No.
You don't have to.
You don't have to change.
Right.
You don't have to be somebody you're not for, you know, the record companies, which is what's going on, which a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
You know, and they change people for the commercial, exactly what you said. So, and these young, tragic artists that don't know their way, and they're so young, and they don't know, and they get up into these lifestyles, and then, you know, tragedy hits.
Yeah, I can't imagine being that young. I mean, I wouldn't have been necessarily smart thinking in my 20s if I had that kind of notoriety and attention and availability and peers doing things, so you never know.
Everybody's saying yes to you. Everybody giving you everything you wanted, living in these places, just a disposable amount of money. Yeah, you're going to get into some trouble if you're young, because, you know, history shows that.
Well, now they're showing that the brain takes till the age of 25 to fully develop, and not like 20. We watched a documentary on that. So that's interesting so before that time you can make all kinds of mistakes, you know, because it's not fully developed.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then you play in the alcohol and the drugs, which of course has a great influence on your judgment ability. But, well, getting back to your own adventures. So there was one house, I know we're going to get away now. Was there anything else you wanted to say in the Topanga Canyon area, though? So we've done the Laurel Canyon, Topanga Canyon area.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, unless I go up to a couple more of them. But I did go to the Paramount Studios recently, and I did go to this restaurant called The Old Place. Which they filmed Twin Peaks. And
I love that show.
I just started watching it again, and it's so creepy. And
it's
creepy. The backwards room and all that stuff. I forgot. I was young when that came out, and it was kind of taboo to watch it back when it very first came out. And now that I'm revisiting it and I'm going to these places that they filmed it, David Lynch is a trip. And that place called The Old Place, they, you know, a lot of old cowboy western artists went in there, but they did film X-Files and Twin Peaks in there.
I just watched all of the X-Files.
Oh, wow.
I started during the pandemic because I'd never really watched a whole lot of them. And we were fans of Chris Carter's show Millennium.
Okay.
We loved that show. So we were watching that and never got into it. So I decided to watch the whole thing. And there, every now and then I would sort of lose interest, but then there would be one episode to be like, oh, you know. And so, I mean, it's definitely worth watching through the whole thing if you like the paranormal. And I could see where they were groundbreaking.
It was.
And
it wasn't his sister the one that was abducted, and that's why he was trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah,
that was the whole basis.
The premise of his Fox Mulder is searching for his sister, who he believes he saw abducted by aliens.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's complicated.
It is. So is Twin Peaks. And I love complicated shows with all their little spin-offs and all of their stuff. It just keeps me so, I can't sit down for nothing usually to watch a show. But those ones, yeah.
Yeah, I do like, now I hardly ever get through a whole reality TV ghost investigation. I usually fall asleep, but the paranormal shows that are fictional, I do. I mean, I can't believe I watched how many seasons was it? I don't know. It was a lot of the X-Files.
Yeah,
so,
a lot.
But I'm glad I did. I did enjoy it. I think
it's cool.
Chris Carter has an interesting mind for sure. So let's move then to Long Beach. There was a place you visited that I wanted you to talk about, the Bembridge House. Is that how you say it? Bembridge?
Bembridge.
So that one, the little bit I know about it is quite tragic. So tell me the story of that particular house.
Dorothy Bembridge grew up in this house since the early 1900s, and her father bought it, and she lived there. And she had some tragedies happen there, but she was alone in the house. She was a music teacher. She was a pianist. And she was, local music teacher. And in 1990 at Drake Park, that's like right next to where the house is at, there was transient handyman. And she hired him a couple times, but this guy broke in a couple times and was stealing from her. So she ended up prosecuting him and putting him in jail for 9 years. 9 years is a very long time. 9 years is a long time to sit there and fester of your revenge. Okay, that's what I think that this whole thing came about. And in 1999, he got out. 3 weeks later, he strangled Dorothy in her backyard. 89 years old. That's like grandma. Like, he did that to her. And they found her, the neighbors, and it's really sad. And I toured it not even a month ago, maybe a month ago at that. All of her stuff is still in the house, from her little coffee cups to her Afghans to her towels. Everything that she used, they basically, when she passed away, they made this house like a time capsule to Dorothy. And you can go and you can tour it on Tuesdays. And one Saturday a month, I think. And it's old Queen Anne style. It has a beautiful little garden on the side. But it's just such a stigmatism with it that she died there.
So why was it not sold then? Nobody wanted to sell it? She had no relatives?
The Long Beach Historical Society took it.
Oh.
And they wanted to tear it down. And thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, TJ, hello. Thank you. They wanted to actually tear it down, and little Dorothy Bembridge saved her home.
Oh, before she was murdered
in it. Like,
that one really, that's so sad. I mean, you don't usually think of a thief turning into a murderer. He must have had some other...
9 years.
I know, but that seems like it's going against what you learn on Law and Order.
Yeah,
the
right?
profiles.
And he just did not even care. And so looking up all of my stuff, 2 people were gunned down. Did you look that up too recently? Mm-mm. 2 people were shot and murdered outside of that house at a party that they were parking by the Bembridge very recently.
Oh my God.
And their families are coming out and talking about this, and that happened right there on that block.
Wow.
Yeah, really creepy stuff.
So now maybe there's a little bit of some sort of darkness, or maybe it was there before if one researched far back enough. That's possible.
Yeah, and I did my research on her, and I found her to be just an awesome lady, a traveler. She didn't have any kids, and she was one of the last passengers on the Queen Mary.
Oh, wow.
And she has in the home, if you tour it, she has like her little Queen Mary book. I mean her bag, RMS Queen Mary, all of her stuff and all the places she had been. And she was a fascinating woman. She was a tiny little woman. They have like a cutout of her in the house, which is kind of creepy. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, because that was kind of creepy when they brought this out of the closet. I was like, that's her! Like, oh my God. So they left her, that cardboard cutout, in the window.
Oh, that's really a little bizarre.
People were saying they thought that it was her ghost. But it was her cutout. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. I have pictures of it. It's like that big, this little cutout of her. She was a tiny little woman. She sewed all this stuff, but what a tragedy with that house.
Yeah.
And the lady that does, like, she's like the docent, pretends she's like an actress. She talks about like how she is Dorothy and she's letting you into her house. And she was like, oh, what brings you here? And I'm like, oh, I heard it's haunted. She's like, you think my house is haunted? I'm like, yeah.
That's so cool. So I think we had one more question we can get to about, except now it's past, so I'm not sure. We have a comment from John. Hello, chat. I feel Holly is a very passionate lover. I get them vibes for sure. I'm very rarely wrong. Woohoo, Holly. Watch out for your fiance. There was something about a fairy situation, but I can't see the question now, so I can't look at it. Someone had some encounter they thought with a fairy, but that's not particularly what we're talking about today.
I want to believe in fairies, and I want to believe in fairy rings. I've actually researched fairy rings. Have you ever researched them?
I know about them, and I think I've been around some in Nova Scotia.
So you've seen them.
We've been in fairy country, and there's definitely like some creepy things with fairies that people think all fairies are good, kind of. Some of the new age people.
They're not good. Remember Willow? They were bad. They were bad little fairies. And a fairy ring, for everybody listening and tuning in, and thank you guys so much, is mushrooms that are in a ring. And if you've ever seen them, it's quite trippy to actually see them out in the world. And I've come across a couple of them, and it's literally a circle of mushrooms, and they say fairies come in and out of there.
Yeah, I believe in the concept of the fairy world, since I have Irish background and I've lived in Ireland, and I've had my own sort of feelings walking through some of the more primitive parts. Nova Scotia has some great places you can go safely that are quite pristine still, the land.
Yeah.
And I remember we went for this hike, Michael and I, with a group of people, and I'm always like a little behind everybody for some reason. And I really felt this parade of fairies, and it didn't feel safe, actually. It felt like, and I don't think they're bad. I think it's just that we intrude upon their world in ways that we're not aware of, we're disrespectful, or we just don't understand, because that's how I view it more. They're like a different kind of people.
Yeah.
And they're, they're very dignified, and also they're just not like the new age type fairies. I'm not really fond of that sort of. But I've read a lot about fairies from different people, and of course in stories and things, and I certainly believe in the concept and fairy circles and things like that.
I don't know if I believe in like Tinkerbell and all that stuff, okay, because that's
that's a little too Disney.
Come on, we're not Disney over here. But there could be some stuff, just like trolls and other things, from way before we were ever around or even think of anything. Why wouldn't there be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was dinosaurs, and there was all this, and there's...
Dinosaurs alone are weird enough when you think about it.
Yeah, they are. I was so fascinated by dinosaurs as a kid. Like, wow, these beasts were here. Yeah. I love the La Brea Tar Pits and all the museums down here. It's, like, so cool to even think of that,
So thinking about the Dorothy Bembridge story, do you find that there are certain stories that stay with you for life? Like you're a little bit haunted by what happened to them? Not so much as a spirit attaching you, but just the sadness or the tragedy of it?
Yeah, a lot. That is why I've had to kick back on writing my book, because I get nightmares. And I actually start to think too much of it, because most hauntings, we've talked about it, are tragedies. It's not a great thing that has brought this here to this house or here. You know what I mean? It's suicides, murders, horrible accidental deaths. They don't know they're dead, And when I do my research and I get so caught up into it, it messes with me. So I have to take a break from it for a while. And even though every week I'm out photographing haunted places and I'm researching, I'm not necessarily writing it all down.
Right.
I feel like when I'm writing it down and I'm really researching it and I'm putting it on a paper, that starts messing with me. So I've had to kick back on that. And when I was on the show about the witch's castle, about Shanda Shear and that girl that they lured up there, over there in Illinois, that stuck with me, because that girl was so young and she was tortured, and stuff like that just bothers me.
Yeah.
Sharon Tate, that whole thing bothers me. Being an Angelino, and I mean, that happened, years before I was born, it still bothers me. Going up to David's, like that stuff, and those things. There's always that tie-in to the family and all of that creepy stuff. That stays with me too. That there are really crazy people out there and things can happen to you. And
it's true. And I wonder in some ways, maybe not all paranormal investigators start out this way, but it's a way of trying to distance yourself enough to try to comprehend the inhumane side of people. And trying to wrap our minds around why and how this happens.
Yeah.
And in a way, because maybe if it happened a century ago, you can at least put some distance on it. It's not like it happened last week.
Right. And I know for myself, it's made me really situational awareness about where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I'm filming sometimes, but what people don't see is that phone is down and I'm looking where I'm walking. And I'm seeing what's around the corner. I'm checking things out before we even start, that I feel comfortable that no one's going to come in and attack us or whatever's going to go on. Because going into these places, especially the abandoned places, it's scary. And you have to be careful. And being out in the field, not just sitting behind a green screen and talking about, because so many TikTok people, they're talking behind, and no disrespect to them, because that's cool too, because you're telling the story. But when I'm going to these places, I'm a little freaked out. I gotta watch out. I can't step on a rusty nail. I'm a klutz. I just rolled my ankle, just coming right out of my work. Just rolled my ankle like that. I don't even know what I did, but something like that happens to you in these canyons or something like that. How are you going to get out?
Yeah.
How are you going to get back over that river? You know what I mean? So those things, I'm going to go back to the canned heat house. Regardless of what everybody says, I'm going to go at night. I'm going to do an EVP section back there. And I want to...
Are you going to live stream it?
I should.
You should.
I should. Yeah, I'll like make an announcement and then be like, I'm gonna go back there at night, bring a little flashlight and go see, and I don't know, like I want to do that. I want to go. Oh man, if I could only photograph like Rick Rubin's house, that would be so cool,
Well, we want to keep talking here. It's hard. We get in a lot of chat today, and so we're
awesome
looking at
now.
our chat, so it's very awesome. I like the live. I think you should live stream it. I think that would be really interesting.
That would be cool.
I didn't know you got nightmares, but it makes sense. I get drawn into some of these stories myself just to read about them, and then I have to stop because I just get really sad about the whole thing.
Me too, and it makes me have these nightmares. It makes me start thinking about things, gets me a little depressed, and I got to pull myself out of that because these stories are depressing and they're sad. But the thing is, the houses are so beautiful.
Yeah.
With these tragic histories, and they're these beautiful Victorians that have stayed. And going up to San Francisco and seeing all those beautiful homes with all their history. I mean, that's what it's about.
Well, that kind of balances out.
It does, because they're so pretty and people are taking care of them. And I do want to spend the money to keep them going. I love to take the tours of these places. I purposely go by myself usually. I know a lot of my friends want to go with me, but I need to go first by myself.
You don't have to worry about taking care of them or interacting with them, and you can concentrate.
And then I can get the feel of it for myself first, and then I'll take people back there.
Right.
But I got to see the safety of it first. Growing up, I grew up in a trailer park in San Dimas by a lake with a creek in the back. So I grew up around all of that kind of stuff. Even though I'm a city girl, I still grew up, making bonfires and fishing and all this stuff. So I know how to work my way. So the more places I go, the more I post, and I'm at 380, maybe even more now.
380 places that you've been.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And you have some beautiful photographs.
Thank you.
You should all check out her Instagram, Holly's Haunts. Is that the best?
Yes.
And then on Facebook too, you have
Do You Believe in Ghosts? That's not as active. Facebook, they just don't let you say anything, and they don't let you tell the stories now. There's a lot of words that are red flagged on Facebook, which is, you can't say things. You you can't identify and say the things that are really happening in the stories, which takes from it. So Facebook, whatever. That's more like to plug myself and my friends and put my funny memes. But Holly's Haunts on my Instagram, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love your photographs.
Thank you. I love taking the pictures.
And there is a lot of cheerfulness in your photographs too.
Yeah,
So,
they're not all dark.
They're not all dark.
No.
And I mean, that's just a style some people like to do, but I like that yours is more, it's balanced, I would say.
And I like to roller skate in my sheet ghost.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And I do that.
With the sunglasses.
I can't even see, you guys. And I'm roller skating backwards in a sheet as a ghost. Nobody knows how hard that is. My boyfriend knows because he's seen. I'm like, am I okay? Am I okay? Okay, let's go. But I can't really see. And I go to cemeteries and I roller skate. And I keep that lighthearted. Yeah. I ask Craig, is that disrespectful? He goes, no.
No,
it's okay.
Well, we're running out of time now. Thank you so much. That was really a blast. And thank you all for joining us on chat, all of you.
Yes.
And thank you all for listening in. Join us next time as we continue to research the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a spooky week.